Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. I'm glad you're here. Had a good night and your day already start getting better. If not, take heart. As long as you are alive, you will be able to turn things around and you will also be able to make better of your life. This is segment 1 of the fourth branch program in which we read or continue to read the Mueller report. We are from volume 1. As you might recall, a few weeks back, Mueller released the report to the Department of Justice, and William Barr, after much redaction, has decided not only release it to the public, but also to the legislative body. But as it is customary and constitutional, the legislative body has the right to know everything that happens within our country. And as such, we have hearing in Washington. And in order to assess the executive branch, where it's going, what it's doing, so country does not become and does not change into an authoritarian regime, does not change into a dictatorship that was a safeguard by the framers of the Constitution. For the past few days, we have decided to begin the reading of the Mueller report by asking the question, are you a patriot? It's fitting to ask the question not only because of what had happened, but also because of the reaction of the behavior, especially vis-a-vis the report and vis-a-vis the steps that the Democratic controlled Congress has been taking in order to ensure that the United States of America remains what the framers of the Constitution intended it to be, a republic in which we, the people, are free and we are free to express ourselves. And there is not any other way set in the Constitution to ensure that's the case. So the question is, are you a patriot? Now let me dispel one of the biggest confusion about that simple word. Being an American citizen does not equate being a patriot. A patriot is an individual who would, at even the cost of his or her life, defend his or her country from all foreign and domestic. In the 2016 presidential election, there is absolutely no doubt that a foreign enemy interfere and meddle in our internal affairs. There is no debate about that. All agencies, NSA, CIA, FBI, even Department of Justice, have agreed in one thing, that Russia, through WikiLeaks, interfered, meddled in our election, in the 2016 presidential election. Without saying anything beyond that, that should be alarming enough if those who are American citizens to say that we should not accept and we cannot stand for. But instead, the very individuals, legislators in the Republican Party who took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States are at the forefront fighting against the idea of exercising oversight on the executive branch, misleading their constituent, and opening a rift between Democrats and Republicans in order to ensure they can always keep their job. If you are a Republican and you voted for Trump, let me say as clearly as I can, you made a mistake by voting for Trump, because you did not vote for Trump because you so much know that Trump could do a better job. You voted for Trump because you were instructed by vote for Trump. As I discussed yesterday, a lot of my fellow Republicans with whom I had conversation and exchange ideas believe that I did not vote for Trump because they were influenced by Russia. And I challenged them that the reason they voted for Donald Trump, or a major reason they voted for Donald Trump, is because of information that was provided to them by Russia. Yes, you can deny it, you can pretend that that's not the case, but deep down you know that you made your decision based on a lot of information you got from Russia, which you may have not known at that time. Granted, your decision was made, influenced very much so by Russia. How can we possibly know that? In the Mueller report, it is very that Facebook alone had 122 million users who were exposed on a daily basis. And as we were approaching the election, on an hourly basis, propaganda supporting Trump and disparaging Hillary Clinton. So yes, as I tried to explain as much as possible yesterday, we belong in the human species. We make decisions, big and small, based on information that are provided to us. It is not science fiction. It is not rocket science. You don't need a college degree. You don't need to be a genius to figure that out. A simple example that if you have a headache, if you feel pain, headache, stomachache, whatever, you have some pain, you would read for the pill which provide relief from those type of pain. And if you pause for a moment and ask, how did you come to that decision? You have absorbed information that tell you if you have a headache, you reach for an aspirin. You then come to that on your own. You've been exposed to that information all your life. Or at some point, even at the time that you have the headache, if you never taken pill before, but at the time you have that headache, you would ask someone, what's good for a headache? Yes, we make decisions that way. And as such, I can say with high degree of certainty that you, Republicans who voted for Donald Trump, did so because your brain worked out by Russia, and if you don't want that to be said that way, I'll say it in a different way. You were instructed by Russia to vote for Donald Trump, and you did. Russia did not take the poll to the voting booth. You bike, you rode, you drove, you walk, however you did it on your own. Granted, the actual vote that you took in 2016 was highly influenced by Russia, because you were bombarded with a deluge of all of which were disparaging to Hillary Clinton, all of which were positive about Donald Trump. So no, you can deny it. And you know what's ironic? The very reason that today Democrats are being stonewalled by the Trump administration conducting investigation is because this is in the human being ways of all things. You want to believe that you made your decision. Donald Trump wants to believe that he won on his own. But the very information that can help show that's not preventing those information from being released to the public. Why do you think so? It is human being to argue that you and you alone made that decision, nobody influenced you. That makes you feel good, that's okay, but the danger in you thinking that's the case is because if you believe that no one influenced your decision, then you don't think there's any need for any solution to a problem. And it's not just you, it's you and the neighbor and the next person and the next person, and before you know it, all the millions of people who voted for Trump believe that's the case. You see where I'm going? Because the way that you solve a problem, first you have to understand and recognize the problem. But if all those millions of individuals who voted for Donald Trump believe that they made the decision on their own, when in fact it is a logical thing that if you've been absorbing those type of information, you were highly influenced to the decision was already made for you. All you did is go to the voting booth and cast your ballot. That's all you did. Russia couldn't obviously take your hands and take you there. But Russia did the job of hacking your brain and tell you exactly how to vote and whom to vote for. The report is a document that provides us an understanding of one, how vulnerable our democracy is, and two, how unpitiable Republican legislators and constituents are. And when we return, we'll touch lightly about that, and we will continue with the reading of the Mueller report. This is the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense.
Live from New York City, at the top of the hour, every weekday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., the Fourth Branch presents discussions, debates, commentary on social, political issues, current events, sports, entertainment, religion, education, science, and every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation on controversial issues such as abortion, homosexuality, war on blacks, a Republican on Democrats, information which might irritate you, make you cry, make you laugh, but above all, will make you smarter. Join us every time it is the right thing to do. It is the only way to keep your sanity in a world of chaos, hypocrisy, immorality, and deception. Welcome to Common Sense.
Welcome once again to the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. I am MD. The way that we in the human species make the decision is based on information. We do not just make decision out of nowhere. There is always basis for our decision. It is also human nature to try to elevate ourselves as such. If we accept we were influenced by Russia, then we're saying that we made the decision based on those type of influence. Of course, we don't want that. Just the same way you see Mr. Trump has been fighting the idea that there was a Russia interference in our 2016 election, because the translation is that he didn't get elected president on his own. So it is human nature to try to dismiss any information that may look bad, any information that say that we're not in control. As such, I completely understand why Republicans who voted for Donald Trump do not want to admit they were influenced by Russia, but they were. No matter how much they fight that, there is no if and but about it. They were influenced by Russia. Now that's past, then that should have been okay. We made a mistake. It shouldn't have been, especially considering that the individual who sit in the Oval Office, there is a big difference between a foreign entity who may prefer candidate A over candidate B and did a lot of things to make that happen. In that sense, Russia would have done a lot of hacking, a lot of propagating, a lot of disparaging information about Hillary Clinton, and also try everything possible certain that Donald Trump became president. Now, in a scenario like this, Donald Trump would have been the beneficiary without being guilty of anything, because that can happen. Someone in any particular predicament can decide to do a number of things that benefit you without thinking about it. So you would have said Russia did all that to favor Donald Trump, and of course our beef would have been Russia. But what happened in 2016 is different. Russia did what I just suggested, but it did it in collaboration with Donald Trump's team. And for those who keep saying no collusion, especially member of the legislative body, I'm not referring to the constituent who do not know any better. Robert Mueller, in fact, Robert Mueller doesn't use the word collusion. Robert Mueller was looking into how much the Trump campaign was collaborating with Russia. And he found plenty. There were at least 100 not a misread, 100, at least 100 people who were Russian working with and on behalf of Donald Trump. And 17 of those 100 people were closely related to Donald Trump. Never before in the history of the Republic. Now you can spin it, you can rationalize, oh, what's wrong with that? In fact, during conversation with my fellow Republicans, sometimes I wonder whether those people are even American, because they don't even seem to have the interest of the country at heart, let alone be a patriot. Because it is one thing that you're a fanatic, because in all fairness, those who supported and voted for Donald Trump are not just constituents, they're fanatics. And I get to that point because with the deluge of information disparaging the other side and promoting Donald Trump, yes, you feel like you have God in front of you. But what I never could grasp is the fact that those individuals, American citizens, completely put the interest of the country aside and argue in favor of a foreign entity providing help to the individual sitting in the Oval Office. We already passed the step that Russia interfered in our election. We already passed that step. There is no argument there. There's nothing really to debate there. We already passed the step that Donald Trump's team, a number of those people, we had former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, we have former campaign manager Paul, we have Rick Gates, a former assistant campaign manager, and the list went on and on. Even Donald Trump's son and son-in-law are caught to establish back channel with Russia. So we passed the idea that Russia interfered in our election. We also passed the idea that Donald Trump was collaborating with Russia. We passed that. There is no argument there. That's why it's impossible for me to grasp that you are talking to American citizens and their rationale is to think, which means they don't even care about the interests of the United States. They don't even care about the fact that that can impact our democracy. That is not in their mind. That boggles my mind. Especially when we're talking about Republican legislators who have come. In fact, there are two are being thrown out there as defense for Donald Trump. The first argument is being advanced by members of the legislative body, Republican members, of course. And they do everything possible to make certain that the argument wins, that the investigation started on the wrong premise. That's the argument being by Republican legislator in Washington, people like Jim Jordan, Mike Meadow, Devin Nunes, those type of people. That's the argument that they're advancing, that the investigation started on the wrong premise. I'm not sure who started the second argument, but it is being spread among the constituents by saying that Democrats would have done the same thing. Let me address the first one. Are you a patriot? I don't mean whether you put your hand on the chest during the national anthem. That's not what I meant. And I don't mean whether you are American. I ask, are you a patriot? Russia meddled in the 26th election and did everything that warranted Donald Trump in the Oval Office. Yes, Robert Mueller could not say what I just said because Robert Mueller needed tangible proof and evidence to this is how prosecutor work. They cannot think things that are not tangible. But I can, because I know that we humans make decisions based on information, and the information that were available to all those individuals who voted for Donald Trump, the information that Russia was putting out there in all the social media on a daily basis. And as I explained at the top of the program, we do not make this in the void. We make decision based on information. And when you were making your decision to vote for Donald Trump, the only information you had that was being, you had an avalanche of information, all of which were bad about Mrs. Clinton, all of which were good about Donald Trump. How do you think you were going to vote? That's not science fiction. That's not rocket science, rather. That was a pretty easy exercise for you. Now that's done, as I mentioned, it's in the past, but we have to recognize that this is what happened. But the legislative body, Republican members, are advancing the argument that because the investigation started on the wrong premise, then it's not relevant whether crimes. If you have those people representing you, you don't have a problem, then you do have a problem. Hear the logic. Neighbor next door call 911 that there is something going on next door, noise. They dispatch law enforcement to investigate. And law enforcement got there was no noise. But one of the police officers could see through the small opening of the door that something, because there are piles of money on the floor, pile of weapon, drug on one side. It's like this is that crime was ongoing. The Republican argument is the police officer could or should not do anything because it was called for noise and there was no noise. So even if there is other crime, then the police officer should just walk away. In other words, if the police officer was to arrest the neighbor for which there was noise at his place, then the defense would have said that my client was arrested on wrong premise. Meaning, the call for noise, there was no noise, but my client wasn't arrested for noise. My client was arrested for drug possession, for arm dealing, for money laundering. Those are wrong premises because the 911 was about noise. That's your Republican legislature's argument. If you have those people representing you, you may be happy because, well, you don't care about the state of affairs of the country. But those people, that's as dumb as it comes. This is the best argument that they have in order to explain that the crime uncovered should have just been glossed over, not say anything about it. That is a sad situation. That's the kind of people you have representing you if you are a Republican. Jim Jordan, Mark Meadow, Devin Nunes, those are their argument, and that's the best that they have. It was on wrong premise, then any uncovered be left alone. That's the legislative body, the Republican representative. Now on the street, you, if you are a Republican, the defense that's being put forth is Democrats would have done the same thing. In other words, the only reason Democrats are concerned about it is that's my speculation here about that. But the argument the Republican constituent on the streets are using as a defense for Democrats would have done the same thing. And I already answered that. No, Democrat would not have. And they proved that over and over and over. Watch out for my peoplebranch.org, probably sometime today or early tomorrow, in which I will provide dates, details, links to show you that Democrats were on the same boat as Donald Trump. And it didn't happen once, it happened 3 times. Democrat candidates for the presidency of the United States found themselves in the exact same boat as Donald Trump, meaning they were approached by Russia to help them. Guess what happened? They didn't say, I love it. They categorically said, no thanks, but no thank you. So no Republican constituent, this is not a defense because it was wrong to do, and Democrats would not have done what Donald Trump did. From both the Republican legislators trying to say that it was on wrong premise, and the argument that the constituents are floating out there as a defense for Donald Trump that Democrats would have done it, well, wrong, because neither the Republican argument makes any sense, any logical sense, nor the Republican constituent trying to use that as if Democrats would have also taken advantage of it. As I mentioned before, they are patriots. They don't have to take a bullhorn saying that. They are patriots because they act like patriots, they behave like patriots, and they are patriots. And they don't have to say that because they prove it over and over again. Even when the dirt being offered, when the help being offered to Democrat was domestic, yes, you heard correctly, was domestic, Democrats say, no, thank you. In 2000, Al Gore office received a package containing dirt about George W. Bush. Al Gore campaign could have used that. He took the package, they turned it over to FBI. So no Republican, Democrats would not have done what Donald Trump did because Democrats know it is bad for the country, it is bad for democracy, and it would erode our Constitution. So no, don't use that as your defense because wrongdoing is wrongdoing and cannot be justified. The only point at this point is to acknowledge the wrongdoing. What you did was wrong, period. There is no if and but about it. Now the course of action is to clean up your mess. It is a mess. You cheered the idea of foreign involvement. You encourage it, because I remember that clearly. I was at that time screaming at the top of my lungs, and that was the first time that I started, actually, instead of writing, that was the first time that I produced a video trying to appeal to your common sense that what you're about to do is wrong. Along that it is wrong. So no Republicans, Democrats would not have done the same thing. And Republican legislators, even if the investigation were to start on wrong premise, the amount of crimes that uncovered would justify such investigation. So the argument is useless, senseless, and the argument actually is troubling, especially coming from legislators. You a patriot? If you are a patriot, you cannot not be outraged, because this is not a matter of being Democrat or being Republican, because our democracy survives is because of that very structure of our government. The minute that you don't have any oversight, then at that point, the idea of democracy of America ceases to exist. So if you are a Republican and you think it's okay, then you too are no patriot. There is no other word of saying it. No matter what you're saying, trying to sugarcoat, trying to go around to explain it to you, that's all it means. If you are okay with what is currently going on with Donald Trump, with the Republican Party, you categorically not a patriot. And no matter what you think of yourself, you are not a patriot. Because a patriot is someone who would give or who would make sacrifice sometimes of his or own, let alone sacrifice a political party in order to preserve the democracy, in order to preserve the Constitution, in order to preserve the rule of law. So if you cannot do that, don't talk to anyone about it, because you are no patriot. We have the next section of the Mueller report is Russia-related communication with the campaign. While he was discussing with his foreign contact a potential of campaign official with Russian government official, Papadopoulos kept campaign official apprised of his efforts. On April 25, 2016, the day before Mifsud told Papadopoulos about the email, Papadopoulos wrote to senior policy advisor Stephen Mueller that, quote, the Russian government has an open invitation by Putin for Mr. Trump to meet him when he is ready, end of quote. And that, quote, the advantage of being in London is that these governments tend to speak a bit more openly in neutral cities, end of quote. On April 20, after his meeting with Mifsud, Papadopoulos wrote a second message to Mueller stating that, quote, some interesting messages were coming in from Moscow about a trip with Israel, end of quote. The same day, Papadopoulos sent a similar email to campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, telling Lewandowski that Papadopoulos had, quote, been receiving calls over the last month about Putin wanting to host Trump and the team when the time is right, end of quote. Papadopoulos' Russia-related communication with campaign officials throughout the spring and summer of 2016. On May 4, 2016, he forwarded to Lewandowski an email from Timofeyev raising the possibility of a meeting in Moscow, asking that was, quote, something we want to move forward with, end of quote. The next day, Papadopoulos forwarded the same Timofeyev email to Sam Clovis, adding to the top of the email, quote, Russia update, end of quote. He included the same email in a May 21, 2016 message to senior campaign official Paul Manafort under the subject line, quote, request from Russia to Mr. Trump, end of quote, stating that Russia has been eager to meet Mr. Trump for quite some time and have been reaching out to me to discuss. Manafort forwarded the message to another campaign official without including Papadopoulos and stated, let's discuss. We need someone to communicate that Trump is not doing these trips. It should be someone low level in the campaign so as not to send any signal, end of quote. 2016, Papadopoulos replied to an earlier email chain with Lewandowski about a Russia visit, asking if Lewandowski, quote, wanted to have a call about this topic, end of quote. Whether, quote, we were following up with it, end of quote. After Lewandowski told Papadopoulos to, quote, connect with, end of quote, Clovis, because he was, quote, end of quote, Papadopoulos emailed Clovis that, quote, the Russian MFA, end of quote, was asking him, quote, if Mr. Trump is interested in visiting Russia at some point, end of quote. Papadopoulos wrote in an email that he, quote, wanted to pass this info along to you for you to decide what's best to do with it and what message I should send or to ignore, end of quote. After several email and Skype exchanges with Timofeyev, Papadopoulos sent one more email to Lewandowski on June 19, 2016, as campaign manager. The email stated that, quote, the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, end of quote, had contacted him and asked whether if Mr. Trump could not travel to Russia, campaign representatives such as Papadopoulos could attend the meeting. Papadopoulos told Lewandowski that he was, quote, willing to make the trip off the record if it's in the interest of Mr. Trump's campaign to meet specific people, end of quote. Following Lewandowski's departure from the campaign, Papadopoulos communicated with Clovis and Walid Fares, another member of the Foreign Policy Advisory Team, about an off-the-record meeting between the campaign and Russian government official or with Papadopoulos' other Russia connection, Mifsud and Timofeyev. Papadopoulos also communicated directly with Clovis and Fares in connection with the summit of the Transatlantic Parliamentary Group on Counter-Terrorism, TAG, which Fares was co-secretary general. On July 16, 2016, Papadopoulos attended the TAG summit in Washington, D.C., where he sat next to Clovis as reflected in the photograph below. So you can assume that I'm looking at a photograph in which Papadopoulos sat next to Clovis. Although Clovis claimed to have no recollection of attending the TAG summit, Papadopoulos remembered discussing Russia's foreign policy trip with Clovis and Fares during the event. Papadopoulos' recollection is consistent with emails sent before and after the TAG summit. The pre-summit messages included a July 2016 email in which Fares suggested meeting Papadopoulos the day after the summit to chat, and a July 12 message in the same chain in which Fares advised Papadopoulos that others are very nervous about Russia. So be aware. 10 days after the summit, Papadopoulos sent an email to Mifsud listing Fares and Clovis as other participants in court in a potential meeting at the London Academy of Diplomacy. Finally, Papadopoulos' recollection is also consistent with handwritten notes from the journal that he kept at the time. Those notes, which are reprinted in part below, we're looking at it. Fortunately, you can't, but we'll tell you exactly what the notes say in just a moment. Those notes, which are reprinted in part below, appear to refer to potential September 2016 meeting in London with representative of the office of Putin, and suggest that Fares, Clovis, and Papadopoulos, in parentheses, Walid Sam Me, would attend without the official backing of the campaign. Between quotes, no official letter, no message from Trump. This is what was in the handwritten note. September at the top of the handwritten note. Have an exploratory meeting. 2, which is stricken or lose. If allowed, they will blast Mr. Trump. We want the meeting in London, England. Walid Sam Me. No official letter, no message from Trump. They are talking to us. It is a lot of Putin. Explore We Are campaign. Remember, those are notes, not a part of the report. Of Israel, Egypt, willingness to meet the FM SP with Walid FM coming. Useful to have a session with him. End of the handwritten note. Later communication indicate that Clovis determined that Clovis, on August 15, 2016, Papadopoulos emailed Clovis that he had received requests from multiple foreign governments, in quote, even Russia, for quote, workshop consultation abroad, end of quote, and asked whether there was still interest for Clovis, Fares, and Papadopoulos, quote, to go on that trip, end of quote. Clovis copied Fares on his response, which said that he could not, quote, travel before the election, end of quote, but that he, quote, would encourage Papadopoulos and Walid trip if it is feasible, end of quote. Papadopoulos was dismissed from the Trump campaign in early October 2016 after an interview he gave Russian news agency Interfax generated adverse publicity. Trump campaign knowledge of dirt. Papadopoulos admitted telling at least outside the campaign, specifically the then Greek foreign minister, about Russia obtaining Clinton-related email. In addition, a different foreign government informed the FBI that with Mifsud in late April 2016, Papadopoulos suggested that the Trump campaign had received indication from the Russian government that it could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of that would be damaging to Hillary Clinton. This conversation occurred after the GRU spearphished Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta and stole his email. The GRU hacked into the DCCC and DNC. See Volume 1, Section 3.A and 3.B Supra. Such disclosure raised questions about whether Papadopoulos informed any Trump campaign official about the email. When interviewed, Papadopoulos and the campaign official who interacted with him told the office that they could not recall Papadopoulos' that Russia had obtained dirt on candidate Clinton in the form of email, or that Russia could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information about Clinton. That he could not clearly recall having told anyone on the campaign, and wavered about whether he accurately remembered an incident in which Clovis had been upset after hearing Papadopoulos tell Clovis, who thought, quote, they have her email, end of quote. The campaign official who interacted or corresponded with Papadopoulos have similarly stated with varying degree of certainty that senior policy advisor Stephen Mueller, for example, did not remember hearing anything from Papadopoulos or Clovis about Russia having email of or dirt on candidate Clinton. Clovis stated that he did not recall anyone, including Papadopoulos, having given him non-public information that a foreign government might be in possession of material attaching to Hillary Clinton. Documentary evidence on nothing in the email accounts or other communication facilities reviewed by the office shows that Papadopoulos shared this information with the campaign. As I mentioned earlier, I will be publishing an article on the PeopleRange.org website in which I will provide detailed information to show that 3 times Democrat presidential candidate, not the same time and not 2016, that's in the past, 3 times candidate for president were approached by Russia to help them win the election, and all 3 times the Democrat candidate said no to Russia, because Democrats understand that soliciting help from a foreign entity is a betrayal to our Constitution, to our mode of freedom. We will continue the Mueller reading, or the report of the Mueller, the reading of the Mueller report tomorrow in our segment 1. We invite you to join us again in a couple of hours in which we will discuss matters the election, the 2020 election ongoing. I am MD, and that was the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. That was an update through the prism of common sense. Join us again at the top of the hour. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion, or simply let us know how we're doing. Thank you for watching. See you in just a bit.
The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.